Bitcoin opens up the week with a little bit of a pullback and perhaps even a little bit more to come as well. But the real question of this week is Bitcoin ready for blast off? The big blast off that I think a lot of people are looking for, which is the topic of today. Also, I do want to be revisiting the 4-hour setup that we looked at over the past few days. There is a new update there as well. And other than that, it's officially the 6-year anniversary of this channel, which is absolutely insane. This channel started completely on a whim and grew into whatever the hell you see in front of you right now, which I'm ever so grateful for because it has been one of the highlights of my life. I just want to say massive thank you for that. And of course, we do have the sale going on for everything in the product store, the service store, whatever the hell you want to call it, in the links in the description below, with the coupon code Happy 6 Year in all capitals, and 6 is the number 6. All right, sweet. Well, maybe we'll visit that a little bit later, but first things first, let's get into it right here. And and I should also let you know, for the time being, please do give Elsa a little bit of time to respond to emails. There's been a bit of an influx into them recently, and also please be nice to Elsa as well. She gets enough shit from me. She gets enough beatings as well. She gets 3 on the day, except for Women's Day where she gets 4, just because it's a special day. Anyways, it's a joke, by the way, okay? Very bad joke. But let's first update with the 4-hour setup that we're looking at over the past few days here. While I did think that this one was going to go for more before it did get closed, and the average tip, actually was more as well, it did fire off the take profit signal here at just over $69,000 yesterday, late yesterday, at least for me over here in Dubai. So now it's time to be looking for the next thing. And this one actually might align for another setup perhaps later today. Now, as Bitcoin did come back down, I do want to be very cognizant of where we are in the greater scheme of things, in the greater picture. So in this case, as Bitcoin is basically at all-time highs, we can see from this Twitter post that I made, I think this was a week or two ago now, that anytime Bitcoin has retested the prior cycle highs, it has taken, usually a very short time for Bitcoin to not just break through those prior highs, but shatter those prior highs with massive weekly green dildos. And in this case, you can see these first couple ones over here where, just 1 week, Bitcoin basically retested the prior all-time high and then just bulldozed right through it. The only one that took, really a semi-prolonged amount of time was this one over here in the 2017 saga, where Bitcoin spent eight weeks after first retesting the prior all-time high and then popping back up to make new closing all-time highs. And then, of course, the most recent one was in 2020, where Bitcoin took 2 weeks after retesting the prior all-time highs at $20,000. So in this case, this would be week number 1, actually, as Bitcoin retested the all-time high last week for the first time in quite some time. We can get to it right on over here. And so this week would be week number 2. And if history is anything to go off of, the probabilities start to increase with Bitcoin perhaps bulldozing its way through here. Now, I do want to state yet again that Bitcoin, in the short term, might have a more prolonged pullback from here. We'll go over ranges of interest for that. That's not really the focus of today's video, but in this case, I do want to also show that while Bitcoin is basically at prior all-time highs, we are seeing a retest of the long moving average on the pi cycle high indicator. Why is that relevant? Because basically anytime that we have seen Bitcoin, anytime that we've seen Bitcoin really close above it, this white moving average right here is what I'm talking about, the long moving average. Well, we could just mark them off on the chart. One of them would be right there. Another of them would be right here. Another one of them would be right here and right here, all leading towards some pretty impressive continuation moves. So that is officially at 69,100, and it's not too far away from current price action. Of course, this is going to be judged on a weekly closing basis, and this is for the index representing the full history of spot price action. So what does that essentially imply? If Bitcoin closed above that at the end of this week, 69,100, we're very likely going to see a big extension of this move. if not before that. Also, as I did almost allude to here, the same chart, or sorry, the same indicators on CME chart actually already broke above that white moving average. You can see that last week's wick to the downside did perfectly test it before, launching back above it. So, when I'm looking at the spot index chart, I do think it's more of a formality to be waiting for that one to quote unquote be broken. But in this case, CME probably shows the way, and you can see, at least for the history that we do have, which is not as much as the index, to be fair, it actually has operated a little bit more accurately, I would say, catching the high right here, catching the breakout right here, and catching the high right here on the rejection as well. So in this case, this would be essentially a fresh breakout with likely continuation to follow on top of that. Again, this is very, very high-term time frame stuff. So now let's go down into slightly lower-term time frames. Go down to the daily time frame right here, representing the HPDR bands indicator, and we can see that Bitcoin has traded sideways basically from last week to this week. Yeah, there was a few wicks to the upside, a few wicks to the downside, but ultimately one of our major dispositions on this channel was, hey, as long as Bitcoin's going sideways here, this is going to favor the boo laws, as this will be a reset on volatility and the HPDR bands indicator, of which we've seen volatility now drop off today to single-digit percentiles. Actually, it's at 8.7 percentile, and you can see a test of the bottom side of the blue 38.2% low. So I've actually changed these numbers around a little bit. In the past couple weeks here, I've been playing around with more Fibonacci numbers, and I do find that this is actually even more accurate than using 50 as a range low. And by the way, the HPDR ecosystem, the bundle, if you want to call it that, maybe I rename it the ecosystem. That's a cool word. That's a cool clickbait word. But that is also on sale as well. Everything in the Teachable store, same damn code. But yeah, in this case, this one is going to have a chance today to close above the median. The median is that white line right here, which is currently just above 69,000 bucks as well. That number sounds very, very familiar, doesn't it? Because if we go back on over here to the to spot price action, that is exactly where the pi cycle high indicator on the long moving average, that white one right here, is positioned at. So I would look at this as an early indication, an early warning sign that Bitcoin has pretty much put in the extent of its short-term correction after a retest of the prior all-time highs, and is ready to trade sideways enough from here, probably this week, maybe latest next week. So I would expect this to happen relatively fast. Now, let's say Bitcoin fails that pivot today, again, 69,100 on a daily closing basis for the spot index. Well, at that point, I would still be open towards a more prolonged short-term correction. Where would short-term corrective downside targets be? Well, in this case, the 5-day time frame, I think, really gets us well. Let's go over here, or was it right here? Yeah, it was right here, as Bitcoin does operate between the 61.8 level and the 78.6 level, and you can see, actually, that's where it's been operating for the past couple periods, but the downside pivot would be 64,450. So what am I trying to say? Bitcoin on the higher term time frames is macro mega fucking bullish. Really going with the clickbait today. But I mean, that is a way to interpret this. As long as it is closing 5-day dildos above 64,450, which will be the next period is Friday. So what am I trying to say? As long as Bitcoin's above 64,450, upside is the answer. Downside to that level is fine, completely fine. But we would expect to bounce there if things are going to continue. If Bitcoin starts to close on the other side below 64,450, okay, now you got likely a greater correction in store. You're probably looking at an overall move back down below $60,000, and in this little consolidation over here will turn into a more long-form consolidation. But until then, this still says continuation. And as far as the daily is concerned, the daily has had its reset, and any sort of price action within this blue zone right here is going to favor long-term upside, especially as HPDRO is now neutral and volatility is, I mean, it might spend some time down here. That's completely fine, but that's going to be a bullish reset, especially with HPDRO kind of in the area that it's at right now. So very, very short term on the daily, below let's call it 66,900, basically the low of the day, which caught the bottom side of this range just about perfectly. At that point, yeah, maybe a correction down to 64.4, but that's the area that you really would expect to hold and not be violated on a closing basis if Bitcoin is going to continue the current forwards and upside momentum throughout this week and probably next week as well. Anyways, so we've gone through that. We've gone through that. Also, of relevance here would be the weekly stochastic oscillator. Again, way deep in the critical zone, as you can see. But what is the same pivot, or this pivot over here? I'm giving it away. 64,600 basically, or 64,500. Very much in alignment with the 5-day range that we just looked at. So, I do like the confluence there. Daily time frame, again, it's fucking crazy, but this is why I do say as long as it's within the critical zone, that's not necessarily a cause for concern just yet. You expect that in very, very strong trending moves, just like we've seen in the past. But once it starts to come back down the critical zone, that's where I'd really say, hey, corrections are inbound. Current pivot is 67,200 basically. And I did forget to bring up the daily statistics as well. Let me just, where is it? The prime analysis. There we go. As always, I want to remind myself what Monday is looking like. And in this case, Monday has a slightly, do I have this one set for, whoops. Do I have this one set for, yes, I do. Okay, so this is just counting the days thus far since the bull market really started. I would say basically beginning of 2023 to current times. Monday, just over 52% probability to close positively. But the interesting thing about Monday is that it has the highest positive returns for those positive closures at 66%. So if we take that from the current open, what would that essentially look like? And what would the range both to the upside and the downside look like based off of these statistics? 266 to the upside puts Bitcoin on new all-time highs, above 70,700. If it does play it to the downside, which is 169, that is 67,700 again on a closing basis. So fair enough. We've actually already seen lower than that on the wick to the downside thus far. Other than that, I think we're at the end of this video. We have the major pivots in mind. Generally, continuation is implied as long as those are met. 64,450 is the big one for long term. Short term is, let me go back on over here because I already forgot it. It is 66,900, let's call it, on a daily closing basis. It's not, I mean, we've already seen a wick down there, which is fine. Should I talk about this over here? No, is this my personal one? Yeah, this is actually my personal one. Still a strategy that I'm working on. Just want to let everyone know, or remind everyone that you can still get your bot slave. You can choose rich and choose slaves and get the biggest discount that we'll ever have for this service, which allows you to, one, automate your back testing through this script right here, the skeleton key external, and then two, you can automate trade execution from that, and you also get access to a bunch of different strategy sort of templates, if you will, that you can iterate off of. Again, I've been showing this one pretty hard this past week because I want people to know about it, because I mean, realistically, the skeleton key has changed my life just because it's made backtesting so much easier. It's made trade execution so much easier because I don't actually need to be at my computer all the time. Of course, it's not for everyone. Some people prefer to trade discretionarily. No problem. Especially if you're trading like shit coins and stuff too, or super new coins, like this is not going to be something for you. It's not going to really help you that much. But if you're more like actively trading, then yeah. I also want you to know that we're having the biggest discount on it that we'll ever have ever. So I just fear, because I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to fucking happen. Once the sale ends, it's going to be some people who are like, what the fuck, man? I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the one. I didn't know that was the biggest discount. It's like, try to make it as abundantly clear as possible. Again, not for everyone, but it's not for you. Hey, all good, man. No problem with that. But if you are the type of person, it is going to be this will be the lowest price that we'll ever have for this one, as we do want to, well, one, get the word out, and two, incentivize people to move over to the new platform, which you can still use the old platform as well, by the way. It'll be up there and available for you. But anyways, okay, that's enough shilling for today. I think we'll leave things off right there. Again, I do think that Monday, I don't really have super strong opinions on the short term. It's like, could we see an extension of this short-term correction? Yeah, very easily. But as long as the areas that we spoke about are not violated, I'm more inclined to say that this is a lot more likely to put in a higher low yet again. Continue on with the overall rally. Maybe there's a World War III announcement, which completely fucks that up as well. It's always possible, but as far as the rest of it goes, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So as always, I want to be wishing you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow and live stream on Wednesday. All right, take care.